All right, so I got the QuickJack. Finally drank the Kool-Aid. I've been looking at these things for a while now. I got the BL-7000SLX, so basically it can support up to 7,000 pounds. The GT4 itself is not going to be, it's not going to be using all of that threshold. I think it weighs only around 3,500 pounds, 3,400 to be more exact. But because I have two SUVs that I do like to maintain from time to time, either from detailing or basically doing oil changes and things and such, I chose to get the higher capacity model, and these guys are actually a lot more like heavier than the other one. So I think this is around 4,500. The Maserati is about 4,500 pounds. And the Cayenne is about 3,700 or something like that. Don't know exactly, but it's good to have that safety net. All right, so what you see here, it comes in 3 boxes. So what I've done already, I've removed the content of the first box or the second box. So that's basically, I just wanted to make sure it clears, or if I had to return it. So for the GT4, this is the stock alignment and this is the stock ride height. I don't have a lot of space, as you can see. It's pretty tight. It really barely passes the 2-finger test. So this is stock from the factory. I don't think I'll be able to drop it even lower than this. But with this setup, putting the QuickJack, it barely kind of fits in there. So I need to try again with those plastic pads that actually you need to place them on the jack itself, just to make sure that they fit. But if that doesn't work, I have some blocks of wood that I can use to kind of bring each 4-corner up and then slide the jack underneath. All right, so I have everything lined up, just going over everything again. So I have like a plumber's wrench. This is a really baby one that I had. So I'm gonna try this. I have a set of wrench that you can see here. Going to use some gloves, obviously, 3 quarts of automatic transmission fluid. They have DEX MERC on them, so that's the type. I think these are multi-purpose. And then I have an air pump here that I'm going to use to put 50 psi into the air cylinder there. So that's what I'm going to start with. If I need any additional tools, last but not least, the valve tool to tighten the valve. So I'm going to start with these, and if I need any other additional tools, I'll let you guys know throughout the process. All right, so everything is pulled out of the packaging. So we got 2 of the jacks. We have a bunch of these basically plastic pieces that take the load on the jack, right? So these go right under the jack points on the car. That's the pump with the controller, a few hoses, and valves. So that's really what comes out of the box. And I think this is a sealant of some kind, thread sealant that they offer. I still need those tapes to basically prevent any leaks from happening. So in some of the videos I've seen, it seems like they previously provided those tapes, the sealant tapes. I don't know what they're called, but it doesn't seem like they do anymore. So need to run to my favorite Lowe's tomorrow and get that sorted out. Now, one of the things I wanted to show you guys is really the clearance. As you can see, I'm using the lowest padding here for the jack points, and it just barely clears. So I think if I lowered the car, it may become problematic. So, but so far so good. It looks like it's gonna clear, no problem. All right, so I just ran to the Lowe's and got these thread locking sealants type of tapes. These are the most expensive ones. I think I got $4 each, and typically the normal ones are about like $1, but given that I really don't want my car to crash for any potential failures, I just went with a more expensive option. Well, we'll see if that helps. So what I've done here, I've set them up. So basically, if you look at the stickers, the QuickJack sticker, they need to be kind of pointing toward the back of the car. So this is really set up the way it's supposed to be. I got the pump here. There are 2 long connections and there are 2 short connections. The short connections go on the jack itself. The long connection, I think, stays with the pump. And so whenever you disconnect, you basically disconnect, the long hose from the short hose, and the short hose stays with the jack itself. So I went over the manual. It seems like they either changed the instructions, because I don't see part to part a good matching there. Like that bag of valves that you see here, this was not actually depicted in the instruction pamphlet, but I guess we'll figure it out as we go. All right, so the first step is to remove this plug here. This is like a factory plug, to make sure nothing gets into the hydraulic cylinder. So the very first step is to remove the filling plug here, and it uses an H6. So I'm going to go and put it here and start opening it. All right, so now the plug is out. It's time to install the elbow. So the way we go about that is that from the side that there's an O-ring, we get that started. And then once it's, kind of connected, you can tighten by torquing down the bolt that's right here. So let's see how that's done. Pro tip, before putting the elbow in, you want to basically make it a little bit oily by adding, if you have a little bit of ATF fluid, or if you have a little bit of oil, just rub your finger around it, and as long as it's a little bit shiny, it basically helps with a better seal. All right, so the next step, you get the short hose and you connect it to the elbow. You don't need to put any, thread seal tape on this end. However, in this case, I'll kind of fed the line through from under the jack. So from on this side, you need to connect the male valve on the other side of this. And so you want to apply thread sealant tape to this end. And the way you do that, you basically, you want to apply thread in the same direction as you're tightening. So for me, in this case, it's going to be counterclockwise. So I put 2 or 3 layers of the sealant tape, and it's very important that you do it, counterclockwise in my case. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to leave off about maybe 1 or 2 threads from the top. I just don't want to risk the chance of the tape, dislodging and getting trapped into the line and blocking the line. So I'm going to need my 2 hands to put the tape on. So but remember, it's important to do the same direction as you're tightening. So I'll do that, and then we'll be back in a second. All right, so I got maybe, I think, 3 layers of the tape around. As you can see, I left a little bit of space on the top, just because I don't want to risk anything getting in, between the connection and the hose. All right, as you can see, it's completed. This step, the short hose is now successfully connected. On this end, we have these male connectors. Important, like the fitting actually would fit some other valves that are not right for this hose. So make sure you pick the right fitting. And so the male fitting goes on the short hose, and then there are female ones that go on the other ones. So yeah, that's how it looks like. You can fish them from under the jack, just so that when you start jacking up the car, you don't want the hose getting tangled up between the car and the jack. Oops. And this side, same thing. So I've already done that. I've got this pretty snug. So this, and then you can see the tape is applied there. So yeah, it should be fine. We'll see once we start actually testing the jack. We'll see if it's going to leak or not. So let's move on to the next step. All right, the next step is to get the long hoses basically connected to these female connectors. So basically two for each hose, and same idea. You want to apply, thread seal tape to each end of the long hose, and you want to do it in the same direction as you're tightening. So for me, it's going to be, I think, counterclockwise here. And then we'll get that going, and we'll do it for this one and that, and we'll be right back. So keep following on. All right, so the next step is to pressurize this air cylinder, and so it came with a cap on like this, and so actually the cap in it of itself includes a valve tool, so you can actually use it to basically inflate the air or remove any of the air pressure that may be already inside the cylinder. So actually it seems like you don't need a valve tool. So what I'm going to do right now, I do have an air pump. Now the air pump only takes one of those car connectors. So I'm going to pull up my car, get it started, plug this in, and then you want to put maybe around 45 psi, no more than 50 psi in the cylinder. Now, given that I live in Texas and the temperatures can vary, and with the temperature change is also the pressure change, right? So on a hot day, it may be lower, so it may be higher, or in a cold day, maybe lower. So I'm gonna try maybe 45. So the instruction says anywhere from 40 to 50. Definitely don't recommend having this at 50, because the inflection in the air temperature or the ambient temperature can actually result in the temperature of the cylinder to exceed 50 psi if you already have it at 50 psi, and it says strictly do not exceed 50 psi. So leave a little bit of room. I'm going to put it at 45, and then see where we go from there. All right, so this is connected and it's pretty tight here, so it's good. I'm gonna go ahead and get this started. It's going up really quickly, so I need to cut it off. There we go. I think it's about right. Wow, that went really quickly. It's a little bit less than 40 or 50. All right, miracle. I was able to, like quickly disconnecting, connecting. I was able to get around 45 psi. So you may not be able to see it, but hey, it's not an easy process. Definitely takes a couple of times, and you definitely don't want to pressurize over 50 just because you don't want to risk this thing exploding in your face. All right, next step is to connect the male connectors to the pump itself. So they recommend doing the bottom one first, just so that you can get to it for tightening, and then the top one next. So we'll do that in the same order. No, thread seal tape or anything like that. Just gonna get this on from the O-ring side. If you want to put a little bit of oil here, just to make the seal better, or ATF fluid, if you just want to put a little bit of ATF fluid here, I think that's a good idea. Otherwise, you can just go ahead and get these installed. Alright, so now it's time to fill in the ATF reservoir on the pump. So what I've done, I took a funnel. It's very important to make sure that the inside of the funnel is very clean. You don't want to get contaminants inside your reservoir. So I've set it up. I have some rags here and towels here, just in case. Once I'm done, I'm just going to take it up and make sure it doesn't drip anywhere else, and just put it here. I also have another towel in my hand just in case. And so what I'm going to do, so the manual says 2 quarts, I'm going to put 1.5, and then from there kind of monitor the level and slowly add additional until I get about half an inch from the filling hole of fluid. So follow along. All right, so it looks like I put a little bit too much, so it's really less than 2 quarts, even though the manual says 2 quarts. I have about 150 milliliters, so you really want to put 1.8 liter, something like that. I think that would give you that 12 millimeters from the top. So I'm going to drain just a little bit out and put back in the ATF. So I'm going to go grab a syringe and I'll be right back. So one of the things about the filler bolt, it actually has a release mechanism. So if you actually overfill, this is going to let off the pressure by releasing some fluid. I've seen in some videos when people actually filled up the fluid while the jack was all lifted, and then when they brought the jack down, the reservoir started filling up and start building pressure. So that release valve is built in place to make sure that if you make a boo-boo like that, it doesn't go about exploding the reservoir. So yeah, it may make a mess in your garage, but ultimately it's way better than having it explode. Right, it's time to bleed the system. So I've filled up the reservoir, I have tightened the top bolt, I've connected the long hoses, and so each hose goes into one of the jacks, yeah, and then you basically need to tilt the jack itself, just because you want to get the air bubbles on the bleeder side. And so what you have here is a bleeder. It takes a 5mm hex tool to basically loosen and tighten. And basically the way you lift it up, so the jack comes with 4 tall blocks and 4 medium blocks, right? So the stack you see here is 2 tall blocks and 1 medium block. And same situation on the other side. When you get these on, you want to make sure you rattle this, make sure it's stable enough. because once you start bleeding, the system is going to start jerking and moving up and things as such. So you want to make sure it's stable enough for the jack to be able to operate. So with this setup, I think we're all good to go, and the next step is really to go ahead and bleed the system. And FYI, I do have my hex bit ready. I need to get some rag, and as we bleed the system, loosen and tighten, and then yeah, just any liquid that comes out, just be ready to collect it with a rag or whatever you have handy. Alright, so now it's time to bleed. Sure the connections are not leaking. Good. This is pretty good too. All right, bleeding time. Having done the bleeding, checking the fluid level in the reservoir. I'm not sure if you can tell, but initially when I started, it was around 6 millimeters on the top, so it was about here. But now, having done the bleeding, it seems like it's gone way down. So I think I'm missing maybe about 6 millimeters. So I'm gonna add a little bit of the fluid, but you want to be careful because adding a little bit, the level comes up really fast. So I'm going to try to just add a little bit until I get it to that 6 millimeter. And by the way, this is all done while the jack, well, they're lifted, but the jacks are down, right? So you don't want to mess with the fluid level unless the jacks are fully in the down mode. I've got propped, I haven't propped up, but the jacks are down. All right, so let's add a few more millimeters or milliliters of these fluids. All right, so I think I'm done. I've set up everything to line up under the car. There's barely enough clearance to get the jack in there. Let me show you guys actually what I'm talking about. Yeah, as you can see, it barely is enough to kind of fit even a finger in there. So definitely cannot lower the car if I want to use the jack. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna try lifting up the car just a little, lifting up the jack just a little bit, and then come back here, check, make sure that everything lines up, and then if everything is good, just keep going.